tremendously unified party. I don't think we've ever had a party like this. There are some people that want a couple of things that maybe I don't like or that they're not going to get. But I think we're going to have tremendous, not luck, we have tremendous talent. This man has done an incredible job as Speaker. I think we're a very unified party. The Senate's doing great. John Thune is doing fantastically. He's a great guy. And we're going to have a bill, the one big beautiful bill. I think it's the biggest bill ever passed, and we got to get it done. Tremendous tax cuts for people, tremendous incentives, tremendous regulation cuts, all these regulations that are so horrible.
This administration's approach to getting their tax cut for the richest and corporations is to openly claim that all the things that they're fighting for that will continue to screw over regular folks somehow benefits them. All they do is describe the harmful things with a positive term attached. Oh, and they outright lie, too.
This is the vehicle through which we will deliver on the mandate that the American people gave us in the last election. You're going to have historic savings for the American people, historic tax relief for American workers, historic investments in border security. At the same time that we're restoring American energy dominance and we're rebuilding the defense industrial base, and we're ensuring that programs like Medicaid and SNAP are strengthened for the U.S. citizens who need and deserve them, and not being squandered away by illegal aliens and persons who are ineligible to receive them and are cheating the system.
We're not doing any cutting of anything meaningful. The only thing we're cutting is waste, fraud, and abuse. With Medicaid, waste, fraud, and abuse. There's tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. There's incompetent things put in. We have illegal aliens that are multiple killers with multiple murder records getting Medicaid. I don't think anybody minds if we cut that. The Democrats, on the other hand, are going to destroy it because they're going to leave these people on. We're cutting three things: waste, fraud, and abuse. We're not changing Medicaid, and we're not changing Medicare, and we're not changing Social Security. And if I wanted to do those things, I would have done it during my 4 years that we were.
Since they've been consistently busted for going after Medicare, the Speaker and the President's basic rebuttal is to claim illegal aliens are who they're targeting by dismantling the program. They figured since it worked to fool a bunch of voters on their deportation plans before pulling the rug out from under them, it'll also work on Medicare lies. Because these are some of the illegal aliens that they're ready to screw over for the billionaires that want more of your money.
We were there as workers covered the emergency room signs at Midcoast Medical Center in Trinity, Texas. The sight of medical workers leaving for the last time, signaling this is one of the latest rural hospitals to shut its doors.
I think how sad it is.
Marjorie Polvino runs the hospital board.
It has a huge impact on the committee. We will lose lives. 400 people a month come here.
In the East Texas piney woods, Midcoast was more than a building. It was a lifeline where babies were born and where the heart of Kathy Courtney's 90-year-old husband was restarted, saving his life.
How many times have you used this facility recently?
I'd say about 6 times in the last 14 months.
The closure, hospital officials tell us, was driven by the same factors that have closed other rural hospitals. Low reimbursement rates from elderly patients' Medicare and Medicaid coverage, which made up most of the hospital's budget. Hospitals in urban areas get significantly more reimbursement from their patients who have private insurance, which tends to pay more. Republican proposed cuts to Medicaid could leave more than 8.5 million people uninsured and force even more rural hospitals to close. A new report finds almost 750 rural hospitals are at risk of closing.
Calling it a big, beautiful bill is the cover for the big hospital closing and life-ending bill that they don't want people to see. What part about rural hospitals closing that serve under-resourced and elderly patients makes America great again?
Courtney's husband is now home and doing well, but the 87-year-old isn't sure she could drive that far if she or her husband of 65 years had another emergency.
When your husband had a heart attack recently, how long did it take you all to get here?
Probably 10 minutes, 15.
And if you had to go to the next closest hospital, how long would that have taken?
Over a half an hour.
Is that the difference between perhaps life and death?
I would say it is.
So, Janet, when these rural hospitals close and folks end up having to drive a long way, what's the overall impact on their health as a result?
They often give up on preventative care, things like regular checkups, and that can lead to the delayed, diagnosis of something like a serious illness like cancer.
What about the effect of these hospitals closing on the community, Janet?
It is beyond the hospital. These hospital workers shopped in the stores, they ate in the restaurants. If they move to a new area for a new job, that affects the real estate market, the school district, property taxes. These rural hospitals are more than health care. They really are the heartbeat of the community.
Giving the top 1% even more of our money and access to health care will result in communities falling apart. But this administration really doesn't give a damn. He's got Mike Johnson, a fake Christian from a southern state, to run cover for their hateful and destructive plans. It's why he touted him out there after his meeting with these congressional holdouts.
You know, we're going to start this after I was talking to Mike. And again, I'm his biggest fan. I love this guy. He's the only guy who could have walked in with a one. Think of it. You can't be a guy like me and have a one majority. You have to be a guy like him, a nice person. He's very religious. He prays. He's a man of God. And so am I, but he's really to a new level, I will tell you. He is a great guy. They love him in Louisiana, and they love him that's the only kind of guy. Somebody said, oh, well, we want somebody that, if you put a certain personality in there, you would have never, look at what he got passed, what he's gotten passed. And just so you understand, he's getting this passed too. And I don't think there's anybody I could give you guys that is so tough you guys would run if you ever looked at them. If you ever saw some of these guys, you would not ask them questions you'd be afraid to. This guy did something that I don't think there's anybody that's more well-suited to be a Speaker of the House, especially under a case like this. Remember, we had a majority of one for 6 months, and that was a very frightening thing because the Democrats have really hurt our country.
Listen, everything is a sales job, and not even really a good one. He accidentally forgot that he's supposed to also be a Christian to keep up that facade that he has any morals. But while he praised Moses Mike, he let it slip that he doesn't pray, isn't nice, and is nowhere near a man of God. But he gets away with it because he has a lot in common with his supporters that also use religion as cover too.
Look, the tax cuts, is critical. We're going to make the 2017 tax cuts permanent. We're going to eliminate taxes on overtime and tips, as the president promised. New tax relief for seniors on Social Security. And we're going to cut taxes on job creators. So that will help everybody across the country at the same time as incentivizing American-made production and manufacturing.
Again, they're saying it out loud. But all you have to do is take them at their word. We saw the results of Trump's 2017 tax cuts that Mike Johnson explicitly says he wants to double down on and make permanent. This is what he's advocating for. Households with incomes in the top 1% will receive an average tax cut of more than $60,000 in 2025, compared to an average tax cut of less than $500 for households in the bottom 60%. That's according to the Tax Policy Center. As a share of after-tax income, tax cuts at the top for both households in the top 1% and the top 5% are more than triple the total value of the tax cuts received for people with incomes in the bottom 60%. The Congressional Budget Office estimated in 2018 that the 2017 law would cost $1.9 trillion over 10 years. And recent estimates show that making the law's temporary individual income and estate tax cuts permanent would cost another roughly $400 billion a year beginning in 2027. And what's currently being proposed for 2025 would give Americans a tax cut. But the proportions are what they don't tell you, because they figure it's too boring for most people to read, that the bill would cut taxes on average by about $2,800 in 2026, compared to what households would pay if the individual and some business provisions of the Trump tax cuts expire or become less generous as scheduled at the end of this year. TPC analyzed a preliminary incomplete draft of the tax portion of what will become the year's major budget bill. It found that, on average, all income groups would benefit from the tax proposals, yes. However, more than 2/3 of the plan's tax cuts will go to those making about $217,000 or more, the highest income 20% of households. Now, the top 1%, those making more than $1.1 million, will get nearly 1/4 of the tax cuts. The lowest income households would see an average tax cut of about $120, or 0.6% of their after-tax income. Middle income households would see their taxes fall by about 1.7% of after-tax income, or about $1,300 on average. So in contrast, the top 1% would get an average tax cut of more than $100,000, or nearly 5% of their after-tax income. And it gets even more once they make even more money. And when you couple these proportions with the slashing and burning of programs that working class Americans depend on to survive that this administration is pulling off, their cost of living naturally goes up, while their tax cut sits at a measly $120. Now, I know it's boring to sift through all this, and so does this White House. It's why they lie so easily about their objectives while painting rosy pictures of tax cuts for you. And it's also why Trump's response to disgruntled voters who keep saying, this isn't what I voted for, his answer is yes. Yeah, it was. They tell you exactly what they're doing. It's just described as a big tax cut that'll make America great again, when the only American that they're describing to get record-breaking tax cuts is the one that they live in and that uses you.
Are Republicans still grandstanding in your view?
Oh, yeah, sure. You have a couple that will grandstand, but I think even the grandstanders should. Look, the alternative is a 68% tax increase. And you can blame the Democrats for that and one or two grandstanders. We only have one or two, but we have tremendous support. But you'll have a 68% tax increase, or you'll get a massive tax decrease. You'll get a tax cut, the likes of which we've never had before. This is bigger than any Ronald Reagan tax cut. It's even bigger than the tax cut that I gave, because as you know, that's being extended and increased. So this is the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, or you'll get a 68% tax increase. And if that happens, I mean, what Republican could vote for that to happen? Because there wouldn't be a Republican much longer. They would be knocked out so fast.